Over 7 billion people eat flour-based foods every day. Bread, pasta, pastries, you name it. In fact, the world goes through more than $170 billion worth of wheat flour each year. That's a lot of grain, and it all starts in a factory where wheat is tested, cleaned, milled, and transformed into that soft powder sitting in your kitchen. And we will be covering all that here at The Process World. Flour is one of those everyday things that most people overlook, but it's the base of nearly every baked food we eat. From soft sandwich bread to flaky pie crusts, it all starts with flour. And in almost every case, that flour comes from wheat. Not oats, not rice, wheat. Why? Because wheat has the perfect mix of starch and protein that gives baked goods structure and texture. The type of wheat makes a big difference too. For strong, chewy bread, factories use hard wheat because it's rich in protein. For lighter, crumbly cakes, they turn to soft wheat, which has lower protein. And for people who want one flour that works for everything, there's all-purpose flour, which sits somewhere in the middle. So before a single grain gets crushed, mills already know what kind of flour they're making, just based on the wheat they select. It's a small choice that decides how the final product behaves in your oven. But how is the process like? Well, before we get into that, please leave a like and subscribe for more amazing videos like this one. Now moving on. The journey starts the moment a truck pulls up to the mill, loaded with fresh wheat straight from the fields. But it's not just dumped into the system. First, the grain is checked thoroughly. A long probe reaches into different parts of the load and pulls out samples to make sure the wheat meets strict quality standards. No shortcuts here. If the wheat passes inspection, then the mill gives the green light to unload it. From there, the wheat moves into an underground conveyor and heads straight to a cleaning machine. This is where things start to get serious. The machine uses vibrating screens and filters to remove unwanted stuff, things like straw, sticks, and grain dust that get picked up during harvest. Once cleaned, the wheat heads into giant silos where it's stored until the mill is ready to start production. Every load of wheat is treated like a raw ingredient waiting for transformation. And this early stage matters, because if the wheat isn't clean and properly sorted from the start, the rest of the process won't go smoothly. But then, before the wheat ever reaches the grinding machines, the factory takes it through another round of cleaning, this time even more precise. The first round cleared out the big stuff like straw and sticks. Now it's about removing tiny things like weed seeds, leftover dust, or anything that doesn't belong in food. Special machines sort the wheat down to the smallest details, using airflow and fine sieves to catch what the first system missed. Once it's clean, the factory begins blending. This part is like mixing ingredients before baking, but on a massive scale. Different types of wheat are combined to hit the exact protein levels needed for the kind of flour being made. Now comes tempering. Moisture is added to the wheat, just enough to toughen the outer bran layer and soften the inside, called the endosperm. This step makes the milling process easier and cleaner, and it helps prevent the machines from wearing out too quickly. The wheat then rests for several hours, soaking in that moisture and getting ready for the heavy work ahead. Everything up to this point is about preparation, and it's what sets the stage for a smooth and efficient milling run. This is where the real action begins. The milling floor is a vertical setup that stretches across 5 floors. That's because the entire system is built around gravity. The wheat enters at the top and moves downward through each stage, floor by floor, getting processed along the way. At the top, the cleaned and tempered wheat enters the first set of roller mills. These machines are lined up in a sequence and each one has a job to do. The first rollers crack the grain open, breaking it into chunks. As the wheat drops through the floors, it hits more rollers, more sifters, and more purifiers, each one getting the wheat closer to fine flour. The design is smart. Instead of pushing wheat back and forth, the factory lets gravity help carry the load. It saves energy, speeds up production, and keeps things flowing smoothly. And if anything isn't ready, like pieces that are still too big, they're sent right back to the top for another round. This cycle keeps going until every useful part of the wheat is separated, cleaned, and ready for the final grind.
Now you need to understand wheat kernels are tiny, but inside each one is a mix of parts that need to be separated carefully. The goal is to get to the endosperm, the soft, starchy center that becomes flour. Before that can happen, the tough outer layer called the bran and the small inner seed known as the germ have to be removed. The first set of rollers breaks the wheat open. This step releases large pieces of endosperm while shaking off bits of bran and germ. Right after that, sifters step in. These machines sort everything by size, letting smaller pieces fall through while larger chunks go on for another pass to the rollers. Then comes a key machine, the purifier. It blows controlled air over the mixture. Bran is lighter, so it lifts away, while the heavier endosperm, now called semolina, stays lower and gets collected. The machines keep doing this again and again: grind, sift, purify. Each time, the semolina gets cleaner and closer to becoming flour. Once the semolina is free from anything extra, it's ready for its final grind. This last step turns it into the fine, smooth powder we know as flour. Everything leading up to this has been about separating and cleaning. Now the transformation is complete. Wheat has officially turned into flour. But it's not just packed and shipped right away. Mills separate it into different types based on how it will be used. And that all comes down to protein content. You see, protein in flour affects how dough behaves, how it rises, and how it bakes. For strong, stretchy dough that can rise tall and hold its shape, the mill produces bread flour. It's made from wheat with high protein, which helps create that firm texture in loaves. If the goal is something softer like cupcakes or cookies, cake flour is the better choice. It's made from wheat with lower protein, giving baked goods a tender, crumbly bite. Then there's all-purpose flour, which lands in the middle. It's a balanced blend that works for both bread and pastry recipes. Each type goes through its own final sift to make sure it has the right texture before it's labeled and sent out. The factory doesn't just make one kind of flour, it fine-tunes the output depending on what bakers and food companies need. Once the flour is ready, it doesn't head straight to the bag. First, it gets tested. The mill has its own lab where every batch of flour goes through a series of checks. This is hands-on testing to make sure the flour performs exactly the way it's supposed to. One of the first things the team does is bake with it. They use the flour to make real products like bread, cookies, or cakes, depending on what the flour is meant for. Then they look at everything: the color, the texture, the rise, and how it feels when you bite into it. Even the size of a cookie matters. If it spreads too much, it might not fit inside the packaging it's made for. Beyond baking, machines take over for the technical stuff. They measure the moisture level, protein content, density, and even volume. These numbers help the factory know if the flour is consistent from batch to batch. Every test is about making sure the final product delivers the right result, whether that's a fluffy loaf or a crispy snack. But that's not all. There's one more step remaining. During milling, the bran and germ are removed to create white flour. That process also takes out a lot of the natural vitamins and minerals. To fix that, mills add nutrients back in through a step called enrichment. It's a standard part of the process in many countries and helps keep white flour nutritious. The enrichment blend usually includes iron, folic acid, niacin, thiamine, and riboflavin. These nutrients are carefully measured and mixed into the flour just before it's packed. The goal is to match or even improve on what the wheat originally had, so consumers still get essential vitamins in their baked foods. This step is closely regulated. Countries like the US, Canada, and many in Europe have clear guidelines for what goes in and how much. Enrichment plays a real role in public health, especially when flour is used in everyday foods like bread and pasta. So while the flour looks smooth and simple, there's a lot happening behind the scenes to make sure it's both functional in recipes and beneficial for nutrition. Once the flour passes all the tests and gets enriched, it moves to the final stage, packaging.
This part is fast, precise, and tailored to where the flour is going. For grocery store shelves, the flour is packed into small paper bags, usually 1 to 5 kilograms, ready for everyday cooking and baking. Restaurants and small bakeries get larger bags, often around 10 to 25 kilograms, depending on their needs. For large-scale bakeries and food companies, things work a bit differently. Bulk flour is loaded into tanker trucks instead of bags. These trucks carry several tons of flour at a time and deliver directly to industrial baking plants, where the flour is pumped into massive storage silos. The packing process itself is fully automated. Machines weigh the flour, fill the bags, seal them tightly, and then stack them onto pallets for shipping. Every step is controlled to prevent contamination and to keep the flour fresh. Even the bags are designed with durability in mind, so they can handle transport, storage, and handling without tearing open. From small kitchens to giant factories, the packaging setup is built to match the scale of the customer. And that's it. So now to you. If something as simple as flour takes this much engineering, testing, and precision, what else in your kitchen do you think has a secret life you've never thought about? Share your thoughts in the comment section below, leave a like, subscribe, and turn on the notification bell for more amazing videos like this one.